guys, Robert1 here, coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video. And in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video, we are going to be talking about the top 5 best meta decks of this format. Now, obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh has had a ban list. I've digested it, I've thought about it, I've been thinking about what's the best deck, what are the worst decks, and I've finally come to my conclusion of what I personally feel to be the best 5 decks in this format right now. Now, all of these decks are my own personal opinion. I have my own reasons for thinking why these decks are better than the rest. Obviously, I could be wrong, I could be right. It really just depends on the format and how people play and strategies, how things change, and obviously set releases and everything along those lines. But currently, at this moment, these are the decks that I personally feel are the 5 best decks in this format for multiple reasons, and I'm going to give you those in this video. So, without further ado, let's get into it and talk about the top 5 decks. So, at number 5, we have Otto Geist. Now, Otto Geist has always been that deck that has always been on the side, always has been really, really good, but has never really had its time to shine in the spotlight. Outside of like maybe one guy in the top 32 of like a YCS or regional or something along those lines. And seeing as this deck is still as powerful as it was last format, and it was still able to even contend last format, the deck has only gotten better going into this format. Being that the deck still has everything it had last format. It still has the one multi-faker, still has the Metaseeks, it still has the Siliquises, still has Protocols, Manifestations, Imperial Order, Floodgates for Days, Continuous Trap cards, are all sorts of different cards in its deck that allows the deck to function in a way that it would just win games very easily. And because of that, I personally feel like the deck is still one of the best decks. Like, having a deck that can easily just spam out multi-faker, compulse your opponent's cards, disrupting their plays, be fairly consistent. It's not the most consistent deck in the game, I'm going to be honest, but it is still fairly consistent, being one of the more consistent control decks in the game, and also being able to just play cards like Pot of Extravagance to get that extra draw, being able to negate your opponent's board with stuff like Hextia, being able to just play normal trap cards like Compulse and anything else along those lines to deal with your opponent, and also just being able to, you know, even play going second builds and stuff like evenly in the main. The deck is still a very powerful deck, being that it just really it's really heavy on, I'm going to go first and I'm going to win, or I'm going to go second and I'm going to control the game to the best of my ability. And that's why I feel like the deck is just one of those really strong decks in this format, and why I feel like it is one of the best decks of this format. It's just a really good control deck that can control the game very easily and focuses heavy on preventing the opponent from playing the game to a degree. So that's just what I personally feel like, this is why this is number 5. It's not better than the other decks. It can compete with the other decks very easily, but this is just my personal opinion on the 5th best deck. So that's 5th. Let's go on to 4. So for number 4, I have Orcas. Now, obviously, Orcas was the best deck of the last format, being Lunalight Orcas variants, Cyber Dragon variants, Pure Orcas variants. There were all sorts of Orcas variants, but with the ban list, we saw the banning of Mermaid. I know I predicted it wrong. I thought it would be Nightmare, but because Orcas Mermaid was banned, the decks, all the variants, majority of them at least, have actually died, leaving only really 3 variants to memory that I think can actually work, and that is the Pure variant, the Lunalight variant, and the Dark Warrior variant, seeing as we got 3 melee. Now, obviously, I could be wrong here. I could be wrong saying that these are the best decks. This is the best deck in the format. This is one of the best decks in the format. But I personally feel like even though they've lost the Mermaid, Pure variants are still really strong. The Lunalight variant can still have access to cards like Curious and Azathoth to just be able to make their turn 1 board a lot easier. And the deck can, and even the Dark Warrior version can utilize Gokis, Malicious, Armageddon Knight, Isolde, just to be able to guarantee that they can still perform a full Orcas combo. So even though these decks have lost Mermaid, I feel like these variants of Warrior, Lunalight, and Pure variants of Orcas are still very viable in the game, being that they can still do everything they did last format, only really less consistently because they lost Mermaid. So I personally feel like these decks are still very good in the game, and this is just an Orcas area. I don't feel like they're really going to be better than the rest of the decks on this list because they're way more consistent, they're way easier to play, and they can really play around this deck a lot easier now. So I feel like these are the best this is one of the best decks, and definitely Orcas ain't losing its power anytime soon until we see like a really detrimental hit like maybe Skeleton Band or Harp Horror Band. So Orcas definitely still one of the best decks in the game. Let's go on to number 3 though. So at number 3, I have Salmon Great. Now this format, Salmon Great are actually getting more support. In this format, Salmon Great are getting a board wipe monster that says when it's linked into itself, it can wipe the board. Also, it can summon a link monster from the opponent's graveyard and burn your opponent for the damage the attack that link monster has. So not only do you have a burn resource for time, you also have a resource to essentially board wipe your opponent's entire board, winning you the game on the spot, because you can just OTK them with Transcode Talker and other sort of combos. Plus, the deck hasn't really lost any combo plays in the game. The deck may only have one Gazelle and one Circle, but the deck is still really consistent, being that you still have cards like Mirage Stalio that allow you to summon the Gazelle from the deck. You can use the Gazelle to send like the Will of the Salmon Great to be able to summon back stuff. Like, you can still combo off very easily in Salmon Great, and the trap cards and other cards in the deck are still very accessible. Even though you have lost these cards, you still have Signet Mining, you still have Foxy, you still have Lady Debug, you have Buff Buffalo. You have so many things to still gain access to all of your combo pieces in Salmon Great that the deck isn't dead at all, and has only gotten better thanks to this list, because stuff like Sky Striker have lost Widow Anchors and Orcas have lost Mermaid, meaning that they are less consistent now. Plus they're getting the boost with the board wipe card. I believe it's Salmon Great Phoenix, which is a Link 4, and it's actually just insane how good these cards are. So going into this format, Salmon Great are even better. We got Chime, the Chaos Impact sneak peek this week, making the deck even more powerful thanks to the new secret rare coming out in this set, and it's just going to be a better deck in general. So Salmon Great definitely holding one of its spots in the top 5, becoming the 3rd best deck in this format in my personal opinion. It's still a very strong deck. Sure, the deck can't really utilize Phantasme as much anymore because like without Sky Striker, Phantasme just kind of dips a bit because like more control decks are more likely to come out the woodwork. But even still, Salmon Great are still super consistent. They have all the cards that they need, and they're really strong nonetheless. Sure, they may lose to Nibiru, but what deck on this list won't lose to Nibiru other than Otto Geist? Let's be honest. So, Salmon Great, definitely a very strong deck this format. Let's go on to number 2, though. So, at number 2, I have a personal favorite that I personally feel is definitely going to be in the top 5 decks. It might not be in this spot, but in my personal opinion, it is in the top 5 decks, and that is Heroes. Heroes in general are a very strong choice this format, being that the deck is just full-on Dark Lord Turbo turn 1 or full-on turn 2 OTK. This deck is either going to make a board of Absolute Zero Dark Lord turn 1 with just 2 cards, or it's going to make a board of Dystopia Dark Lord turn 1 very easily with 2 cards. Or it's even going to make a board with, on your opponent's turn, Trinity, Malicious Bane, Dread Decimator, possibly Dark Lord, and this is only 2 cards. Like, Heroes are super consistent. They've got 3 melee now, making them even more special summon heavy, being that you can just guarantee you have those fusion materials for your polymerization or your dark calling. You can guarantee it for the Mask Change as well. You can guarantee it for link materials to go into Dread Decimator and Cross Crusader. You can make extra hero Wonder Drive even easier. The deck can play around Super Poly very easily, and that's something that people don't really understand. Like, Heroes, people think that Super Poly is really good against Heroes. In fact, it's very easy to play around Heroes because all you've really got to do turn 1 is make a Wonder Driver and Dark Law and pass. Because that's all you need. Like, Dark Law, like, this deck is probably wouldn't be one of the best decks in this format if it wasn't for Dark Law. And I can be honest about that. Dark Law is a very strong card in this format. It's one of the cards that make this deck so good. Being that you can just have a card that says, oh, you can't send cards to grave. And if you attempt to send a card to the grave, it's banished instead. And seeing as a lot of these decks actually revolve around the graveyard, heroes are just better because of that. And all of these decks make a very mediocre board when you really think about it. Because looking at Orcas, they end on what? A Dingirsu, a Negate, and possibly a Winder. For heroes, for Salmon Great, they end on a Sunlight Wolf, a Stalio, and one Trap majority of the time. And looking at it, heroes are just going to run through that with like a Trinity. Or they're going to make Darklaw turn 1 and stop you from being able to have access to your graveyard. Like, heroes are a very strong deck. They've got Stratos up free for more consistency in the deck. Plus, back row destruction. That's something that people don't understand some of the times. Back row destruction is strong in heroes as well. The deck can OTK out of nowhere, and it can control the game and combo off very easily. And it can play around Nibiru like no tomorrow, seeing as, oh, you're Nibiruing on my set and my 5th summon? Okay, end of main phase, you Nibiru me, Melee affecting grave, summon a Melee, have the Darklaw for next turn anyway. Like, it's just one of those decks that I personally feel will be one of the best contenders of the game. And obviously, it's not number 1. I know it's not number 1 because of what number 1 actually is. And it's just a very strong deck, this format, nonetheless. So, with that, that's Heroes. Let's go into number 1 on this list, which is Thunder Dragons. Yes, Thunder Dragons are definitely going to be one of the best decks of this format. I cannot see this deck not being the best deck of the format, purely because it stops your opponent from searching the deck, which is just insane in general. Its protection is insane. It can main Dimension Shifter, a card that really just stops every deck on this list outside of maybe Otto Geists. It can make Colossus, Titan, Colossus. Like, the deck, like, Thunder Dragons are just a really strong deck, this format. They're very similar to Heroes in the way that they don't really just straight out lose to Nibiru in the end of the main phase, because they can summon, like, a Thunder Dragon duo to then be able to just make a Colossus and then end with that and the big token that you've just given them. Like, Heroes may be really strong, being able to even make Absolute Acid and just nuke your opponent's board. But Thunder Dragons are indestructible majority of the time. They don't need their graveyard, so stuff like Darklaw can't affect them, stuff like Dimension Shifter can't affect them, Orcas can't really affect them, and the deck is just very strong in general, being that preventing a search, but basically it's a combo control deck that says you're not able to play the game, but I am. And that's what Thunder Dragon basically is. It's super consistent, it's very easy to play, and everything in the deck is really cheap. So if you're going to YTS London, definitely keep an eye out for these decks. Thunder Dragon is definitely the best deck, in my personal opinion, but obviously all of these decks on this list are very strong this format. Guys, tell me what you think in the comment section below though. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you think that these decks are good? Do you think these decks are bad? Personally, I feel like this is the list that I would say is the ranking of this current format. Just because obviously consistency, playability, control, and combo is very strong depending on how you're looking at it. And this is just my personal thoughts and opinions. But guys, tell me your personal thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Give me your thoughts, give me your opinions, and I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Yu-Gi videos. This format, it's going to be different. Later, guys.